Am I the a-hole for refusing to apologize for accidentally breaking my brother-in-law's nose and kicking him out of my house? Plus updates. Some context. I, 32 female, was violated when I was 17 during a home invasion when I was home alone. It has taken me years of intensive therapy to learn to live with what happened to me, and I am now in a great place and overall happy. I should mention that as part of my healing process, I've taken Muay Thai/kickboxing since I was 18 to help develop a sense of control and self-defense. One of my few triggers due to the nature of how my attack went down is being grabbed from behind. Being grabbed from behind automatically makes me panic and triggers my PTSD. All my close friends and family are aware of this. They don't all know the reason behind the fear, they just know not to do it, including my brother-in-law. Now, on to the AITA part. Last week, I hosted a get-together with a couple of family and friends at my home. My brother-in-law, 29 male, has always been something of a prankster/jokester. In the 5 years that he and my sister have been together, we have gotten along fairly well, and his prankster ways has never been an issue since he's never really directed them towards me. At one point during the evening, I went upstairs to change. My brother-in-law thought it would be hilarious to scare me as a prank. While heading back downstairs in the hallway, he came out of the guest room and grabbed me from behind. I lost it, and in my panic, I elbowed him in the face, which ended up breaking his nose. Even after everyone rushed upstairs and I saw it was just him, I could not stop spiraling and was in a full meltdown. I ended up calling him every name in the book and kicking him out of my home. Now that a few days have passed, my sister reached out stating that she thinks I need to apologize. Her reasoning being that he had no way of knowing that pulling a harmless prank would have caused such a reaction, especially since he didn't know the reason behind my fear. I stand by that it doesn't matter that he didn't know the details of why I was scared. He was aware that it was a debilitating fear caused by something traumatic and should have known better. Not to mention that he has yet to apologize to me as I broke his nose. Our family believes that my violent reaction was justified, however, they do think that kicking him out was a step too far. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. What gives him the right to put his hands on you? Period. The fact that he knew not to grab you from behind and did it anyway. Fool around and find out comes to mind. And he found a hack out. How old is he? 12? Pranks aren't cute/funny after 12. Not the a-hole. You're pretty awesome. Like movie-style takedown awesome. I like the above suggestion about saying, sorry, you didn't take me seriously and your nose got broken. Kicking him out was a valid reaction. You don't grab women from behind in the dark. No type of apology at all. It is not her fault he is a pervert. Not the a-hole. I'm not buying his innocent prank BS, to be honest. What he did was deliberately cruel. Knowing what it would do to you, he decided to do the thing that traumatized you so much. Think about that. He thought it would be a funny thing to do. That's not a prank. It's freaking psychopathic. It wouldn't surprise me if he was getting a thrill from it. I'm also not believing he doesn't know what happened to you. He knew you had a huge trauma, and he knew that as a result of this, being grabbed from behind is hugely triggering for you. Unless he has the intelligence of a lump of moldy cheese, he knows what happened to you. It's not hard to add it up. You owe him nothing. He owes you 1,000 apologies. Now for the first update. First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone for all the support and wonderful comments, especially all the comments calling me a badass for learning to defend myself and get to the point where I am today. Truly thank you. You all put a genuine smile on my face. Also, all the fool around and find out comments made me laugh, which, after all the recent events, was definitely needed. I wanted to first clarify/answer some common questions I saw. For those wondering what I meant by being grabbed from behind, it is not a simple tap on the shoulder or a gesture someone would make when simply trying to get your attention. When I say grab from behind, think bear hug. Also, for those wondering, my attacker was caught and is currently still behind bars. I ended up sending my family, sister, and brother-in-law included a link to this post. After reading the comments, you all have made family members that were previously thinking that I took it too far in kicking him out apologize, and agree that until I felt comfortable, my brother-in-law is not to be invited anywhere I am. Especially since I am told he is doubling down on while maybe it was messed up of him to scare me, it was still just a prank, and I still broke his nose and need to apologize. So, with that being said, I decided that he could kick rocks and I hope his nose heals crooked. My sister and I have not spoken. She sent me a text asking to meet me this weekend to talk. Throughout this ordeal, the thing that has hurt the most has absolutely been the way she has downplayed what her husband did. She more than anyone knows how hard everything was for me and was there to see the aftermath of my attack. Depending on how everything goes this weekend, I will take the advice you all have made and make the decision on whether I need to go low/no contact with her. At least until she fully understands the severity of the situation and apologizes. I will possibly update this post one last time after this weekend to let you all know where we stand. Again, thank you all. Second update. Hello all. After a very difficult and tearful conversation with my sister, I have come to the decision to go low/no contact with her. Completely no contact for some time. She, like the rest of my family after reading all the comments you all have made, finally saw it from my perspective. She did apologize and state that she truly does understand what her husband did was wrong. However, she feels that for the sake of her own marriage that she needs to stick behind her husband. And so in the meantime, if her husband is not welcomed somewhere, she will not be there either. I will say I am very hurt and disappointed, but that was her decision to make. Just like I made my decision in keeping my distance, as it's become clear that it will not be possible to maintain a relationship with her without maintaining one with him, which is not something I'm willing to do for the foreseeable future. Almost 3 weeks after the event and after reading hundreds of comments, this man is still doubling down. Even apparently had the nerve to say that the reason why everyone is on my side is because I provided a sob story beforehand. He still apparently fully believes that despite it being messed up, it was still just a joke, and I overreacted, and I'm lucky that he doesn't decide to sue me for the medical bill that he is going to receive for the broken nose. Not that it will go anywhere, as him grabbing me is considered crime. Why do these pranksters think their desire to pull pranks is more sacred than the desire to feel safe in one's own body/home? What is funny about making a woman think she is being attacked? Brother-in-law isn't a prankster, he's a bully. He's lucky it's taken him this long to get his comeuppance. In my experience, people who call themselves pranksters are usually just annoying a-holes. I was pranked by one of my seniors in my college hostel. In her defense, it was not just her, but a lot of idiots who used to do this. Anyhow, she waited in the dark while I was coming out of the cafeteria after dinner. She just made a very loud noise and jumped in front of me. I freaked the heck out, and in reflex slapped her in her face. It was not even in retaliation, just my reflex in that situation. I apologized. She also kinda did. But no one pranked me after that. We all used to joke about it months after this instance. Who the heck sneaks out of a bedroom and grabs a woman from behind by surprise, in her own house, when everybody else is downstairs? This was not a simple prank by jokester. This is sicko behavior. And then he calls the OP's history a sob story? Her actually being freaking violated? This man is dangerous, and I would be worried about OP's sister living with him. Good for the OP breaking his nose. Too bad she didn't rupture his balls. Yeah, it sounds like a guy testing the waters to see how far he can go and still get away with it. A lot of predators test out their technique for creepery on women and their families first. I think she angered him earlier, probably something minor at that, and he was trying to put her in her place under the guise of a prank. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I refused to let a friend move in due to their other friendships? Academic year 2019 to 2020. Whilst doing my master's degree, I, 26 female, lived in a flat where I was viciously bullied and gaslit. It put me in an extremely dark place mentally, and I'm still in therapy due to this. It was mostly a group of 3, Jade, 24 female, Erin, 25 female, and Ben, 28 male. I moved into the flat alongside a close friend, Jane, 25 female. Jane did join in with some of the bullying and did absolutely nothing to stop the rest as they were her friends. She is also somewhat romantically involved with Ben and are a bit codependent. She has never apologized. It often ignores my boundary of, I don't want to know about them or have nothing to do with them. Jane is on the autistic spectrum, which is why I don't hold it against her as much as she doesn't fully understand. I have just tried my best to avoid situations where I know she may have also invited my tormentors. The few times I have seen them due to Jane or running into them, they have been foul. From that nasty giggling behind your back stuff and at things you say, to mocking my accent and implying I have an eating disorder, etc. Considering their age, it is pathetic. We all still live in the same city, sadly. There is a housing crisis in the UK right now, and it is especially bad in my city. I'm lucky and live with two others, 25 female and 26 female, in a pretty flat in a nice neighborhood for far below market value. 25 female is moving out. We are now looking for a replacement and have been flooded with requests, including from Jane. I don't want to live with Jane, as my flat is my home and I want to feel safe here. Not worried about coming home to find people who made my life hell sat in my kitchen. However, I am aware Jane cannot afford a higher rent than this, and her overprotective parents won't allow her to live in a less expensive neighborhood. Meaning, if she doesn't move in with us, she would have to continue living with her parents and commuting. I know living with her parents would be bad for her mental health, as they treat her like a child still. All factors considered, would I be the a-hole if I told Jane she couldn't move in due to her close friendship with people who I feel deeply uncomfortable with, and quite frankly scared of? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You don't have to tell Jane anything other than she can't move in. Her life and situation is not your problem, and you need to prioritize your own living situation first. Jane made her choices, and she chooses to remain friends with these horrible people. She has consistently chosen them over you, and through her choices, she has excluded herself from ever living in your space again. Not the a-hole. Absolutely this. You need to come first in your life. And by the way, in my opinion, autism is not an excuse for bad behavior. However, the diagnosis/condition does create a need for Jane to learn how to temper her words and actions. Always easier said than done, I know. Her parents or caregivers/caseworkers should have been ahead of the curve on this years ago. Not the a-hole. You deserve to be comfortable in your own home. From how you've described things, Jane does not respect your boundaries. And honestly, I don't know why you're still friends with her because she's clearly not a friend to you. We have been friends for a long time and are part of a tight-knit group separate to this situation. This whole mess is the only bad thing she has ever done to me, and whilst I find it really hurtful, I have decided to forgive her, but I mostly have kept her at arm's length for my own sake. It sounds like you already know what to do. This may be the only bad thing she's done, but it's a pretty big deal, and she still hangs out with these people who have caused you mental anguish. I think you already know that her living in the flat with you will also bring Jade, Aaron, and Ben back into your life as well. Your home should be your safe space, and you have every right to protect your peace. Last story. Am I the a-hole for selling my father's house even though his widow lives there? My 33 female father died recently. He had been married to his widow Penny for about 7 years before. I was not close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say either of us knew each other well, for many years before his death. When he died, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in trust a year before his death, and I am the sole beneficiary. Besides the small sum that he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her nothing in case she tried to contest it, so everything including his house is now mine. My father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and very expensive to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it, and given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it. So, I intend to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she will have that in addition to her own trust fund once she is of age. However, I do not want to keep my father's house. I do not live in the same country as my father, and I do not want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done, and to close the book on a very painful chapter and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny does not work and was financially dependent on my father. So while the lawyers say she could fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large. So I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I am not willing to do, both because of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I do not want. I have notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious and vitriolic messages from her kids, calling me evil and heartless. I understand this is inconvenient for them, but I'm not responsible for what my father decided to do, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess he left behind. I am not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with a traumatic part of my life. Am I the a-hole? Because of the cost for upkeep that you can't afford, I'm going to go with no a-holes here. Except your father, because I find it unconscionable that all he left to his widow was a small sum, and even that was only to avoid her contesting it. Why on earth was he married to someone he cares so little about? My father was a peculiar man. It's quite possible Penny did something small to irritate him one day, and this is how he took his revenge. Once you have a set price with your realtor, give her and her family a chance to purchase the house before you list it. Then if they refuse, go ahead and sell, not the a-hole. This is the right way to do it. Tell her family you are not going to be responsible for the property and are selling, but you will give them the chance to purchase the property before listing it. I have a strong feeling no one will step up. I think this is one of those situations where you have to consider if you can live with your own decision. Opie may be legally in the clear, but this is a deeply personal moral question, since the dad sounds like a horrible man who forced Opie to play a cruel game upon his death. Opie admits it is possible that this whole inheritance could have been a vindictive act of revenge against the wife for something very minor. It is very cruel to have left his wife, who was financially dependent on him, in a completely vulnerable state, and Opie neither wants nor needs the money. While this is Opie's choice to make, they have to decide if they want to play an unwilling role in their father's twisted games, or perhaps sign the house over to the late wife just for their conscience' sake. Update. Am I the a-hole for going to my ex-daughter-in-law's wedding? Original post. I, 56, have 2 children. Bob, 30 male, and Alice, 27 female. And this post is about Bob. He used to be married to my daughter-in-law Ruth, 28 female. That is, until 5 years ago, when Ruth discovered that Bob was cheating on her while she was pregnant with my granddaughter. I was really disappointed in my son. I taught him to be better than this. I am a single mom/widow. My husband died years ago, and I have remarried only after my kids were in their late teens. And I know for sure my late husband wouldn't approve of Bob's cheating. So, long story short, Bob, Ruth, and I had a fight. I told him I was very disappointed in him. How could he do this to his own wife? Bob yelled at me and said that I am his mother, not Ruth's, so I should be taking his side. I said no, I will not support his infidelity under any circumstances. My daughter also thinks that her brother is wrong, but she is neutral about it. Bob got mad and left the house, and I only saw him at the divorce hearings. I left him messages that if he wants to talk, I would be open to talk, but he didn't respond to any messages. Ruth was an orphan. She didn't have anyone else, so she saw me as her mother. So even after the divorce, she would visit me and bring me some gifts like flowers or cookies. I never stopped her. Ruth also never stopped calling me mom even after her divorce, and I love spending time with her and my granddaughter. About 3 years ago, I set up Ruth with my friend Patty's son John. Patty and I have been close friends since childhood. She knew Ruth really well and loved her too, and it was her idea to set her son up with my daughter-in-law. Ruth and John totally hit it off, and John also became a good father figure to her daughter. Recently, John and Ruth got married, and Ruth wanted me to be there to walk her down the aisle. She told me she walked down the aisle alone when she married my son, but now she wants me to walk her down. I was happy for it, so I said yes. The news soon reached my son, and he called me to again yell at me that what I am doing is wrong. I shouldn't be talking to Ruth because she and him are divorced. He forbade me to go. I told him he was being irrational, that even if he's divorced, that doesn't mean I have to cut off Ruth, then remind him that it was his poor choice that led him to this. I didn't listen to my son and went to the wedding anyways. My son got the news and was angry that he kept cursing me that I'm a deadbeat mom who left her own son for a cheap woman. He called me a hypocrite that I didn't go to his wedding when he married his mistress but was gallivanting at Ruth's wedding. My husband is with me, but he says my son has a point while my daughter says otherwise. Was I wrong to go at her wedding? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Your son ruined your granddaughter's family because he wanted to sleep around. He no longer has any leg to stand on for anything. I'm really glad that you see the situation for what it is, and that you and Ruth have each other, not the a-hole. As a mother, it was a hard choice for me. I tried to be there for him, but his mistress was not a good person. She was a mutual friend of Ruth and my son. She knew that he was married, but still she pursued him. To me, that's not a quality woman. My soul couldn't just bring me to forget the fact that he was so cruel to Ruth when she was vulnerable. Not the a-hole. I can understand how not picking your child's side would make you feel like you did a wrong thing.
Son sounds like a spoiled brat who's missing out on his child's life. Be there for your granddaughter and her mother. Also, put some distance between you and your son until he stops verbally mistreating you. You're doing the right thing. Your son doesn't want to feel like he's in the wrong and will not change till he can accept that truth about himself and want to change. Good luck, OP. A parent's job is to teach their kids the right thing. If I support his cheating, that would be enabling him, which I don't want to. For now, I am putting some distance. The last time I had any contact, I messaged him, "You should calm down first and then talk to me. I cannot have a conversation with you if you are acting like a child." You did right, but your son is too selfish to understand how failure he have been. That in fact married his mistress and continued insulting the mother of his child proves it. You have principles and values. Unfortunately, too many people decide to act like nothing happens, but you did not, and good for you. Remind him that his mistress with a ring or not will never be accepted, and you refuse to be there until he decides to wake up and be the man/father he is supposed to be. He only pays child support, and I have hardly seen him spending time with his daughter. I hear Ruth complain about him always making excuses, and he only got more involved when my granddaughter was becoming close to John. I love my son, but I just wish he would have some decency. Edit/update. My son has emailed me to meet him. I guess I will have to meet him now. Now for the full update. First of all, thank you for all your comments. Although I got some late comments calling me a bad mom and a failure, it was nice to see people supporting me. It gave me strength to know I was not making a bad decision. So now on to the update. My son emailed me and said he wants to talk to me. I thought I should have a long conversation with him, so I agreed. But I made some ground rules. He is not allowed to criticize or call anyone any names like the last time and will be civil when I am talking. And he agreed. He came to my house yesterday at noon while my husband was off to work and my daughter was in her room. He sat down and there were moments of awkward silence. He asked me how I was and we had a small talk. I then asked him about his wife, and that's when he started to cry. Not ugly cry, just few tears, but I can tell he is not doing well. So I sat beside him and told him he can tell me. Then he tells me everything. He tells me that he is sorry for how he reacted, that he understands why I might be ashamed of him. He later tells me his marriage is not going well, that his wife is no way near as good as Ruth was. Ruth took care of all his needs and loved him, yet he treated Ruth like trash. And now he is constantly fighting with his new wife. He knew he messed up a lot, which he learned the last time he visited his daughter and she kept referring John as her dad. Bob tried to make her say the word dad to him, and she screamed saying, "You are not my dad." He saw how much happy Ruth was with another man, and he realized what he has lost. I asked him, "Would you have missed Ruth if your wife did those same things for you like Ruth did?" He was silent. I further told him it seems to me that he only kept Ruth in his life because he used her to fulfill his needs. I explained to him about my relationship with his father. We were with each other, not because I fulfilled his needs. We were with each other because we loved each other. And that love didn't stop when one person was at the most vulnerable and weak. But he left Ruth when she was vulnerable and needed him the most. His needs were fulfilled when Ruth was just a housewife working a small job. But as soon as she's no longer needed, he discarded her. It really hit him hard as he was sobbing. He said that he knows he was an awful person, but he was manipulated by that witch, referring to his current wife. To be honest, I lost my cool and yelled that he should stop blaming other people for his mistake. It was his decision to cheat. It was his decision to leave Ruth. And it was his decision to abandon his daughter. He cannot run away from his responsibilities and wonder why nobody is taking his side. Moreover, he hasn't learned anything from his mistakes because he is still calling his wife vile names. This is the same woman she claimed is better than Ruth. He had a choice not to cheat. He could have pushed her away when she tried to seduce him, but he didn't because in his mind, he made this fantasy that Ruth doesn't care about him because all she ever wanted was to complete her education. I raised him better than this, and he is not just insulting my upbringing. He is also insulting his own father. And he will only see suffering in his life unless he takes full accountability of his actions. He told me he knows I was disappointed in him and he wants to make things right. That he is trapped in a bad marriage because God is punishing him for how he treated his daughter and ex-wife. I told him that if he wants to be a good man, he should start by apologizing to Ruth and become cordial with his daughter. I also gave him a reality check that his daughter already sees John as her dad. So I have doubts she would start calling him dad anytime soon, but he would at least try. I told him to apologize to his sister as well. If he is really miserable in his marriage, he should get a divorce or try counseling. Whatever decisions he makes, I will support him. But that does not mean I will forgive his wife, because she has also did Ruth wrong. Unless she makes an apology to Ruth, I don't think I can see her as a decent person. Lastly, I told him that even though I am very disappointed in him, I still love him. I will always guide him to what is right. He will always be my son, but this is his chance to be a better man. I believe in second chances, and this time I hope he cleans up his act. I am proud of him that he acknowledges his wrongdoings. You're a good mom and person. Sometimes it's impossible to outparent patriarchal entitlement. My husband is a wonderful, supportive, loving guy who takes on 50% of the mental load and doesn't think he's a hero for doing so, while his brother is divorced with 2 little ones and just sucks. No cheating, but definitely a similar mindset of only valuing women for how they're supporting him. Same parents. You know, sometimes you can give everything you have, yet the kids will turn bad. You can't predict everything. I'm glad Opie made a mature decision. Opie, do your son a favor. Get some therapy recommendations for him and hand him the list. On things like this, one doesn't just clean up his act. That is vague and doesn't tell him how to do it. We need to do with the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality when it comes to stuff like this. If he wants to do the work to improve his relationship with his daughter, he has to work on himself, though she can have 2 dads, frankly speaking. I told him he should get therapy. If he needs money for that, I will give it to him, but he does need therapy. About his daughter, I still have hope. Bob said he has tried to be there for his daughter, but his daughter still wants John as her dad. He has to start with baby steps. He can arrange the custody with Ruth, or simply make full use of his visitations. Despite the possible eureka moment, I have my doubts the son will actually try and make amends. Or if he does, it will be short-lived, as soon as he realizes how much effort is involved. For his daughter's sake, I hope I'm wrong. Daughter already has a good dad, and sounds better off with a bio dad at a distance. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my mom now that her husband is sick, and throwing the past in her face when she pleaded with me? My mom and I, 25, female, have a contentious relationship. We have been mostly estranged for the last 7 years. I say mostly because she has made some effort to stay in touch, while I faded away. My dad died when I was 4. Mom and him were not married, but they were together. She leaned heavily on my dad's family for a couple of years. Then she moved us away so she could start a better life for us. After moving, she met John and married him. And since then, I was told more than once by John and my mom that John was now my father. And I was told to call him dad, refer to him as dad with others, and not to correct anyone who used the term dad/father, while I was to correct those who said he was my stepdad. I didn't want to do this, but I was punished, and John yelled at me multiple times for disrespecting his love. And I was berated and told he was stepping up to take me on as his daughter, and the least I could do is to respect him as a father. When my mom gave John children, it became very clear he never saw me as his. I was treated differently. I was not given the same anything, yet the rules remained in place that I called John dad and would get punished for any instance of not. Mom always took his side, always backed him up, always agreed that he deserved some kind of respect for his stuff. I still have some bitterness over this. I didn't want John to be my father, but at the very least, if I'm going to be forced to address him as such, and to correct people who spoke the truth, I felt like I should have been treated better at least. But that didn't happen, and I moved out the day I turned 18 and stopped speaking to or seeing my mom and John. She would reach out. Sometimes I would read or listen to her speak, but I felt good not having them around. Now, John has been diagnosed with a neurological condition and my mom is caring for him. She asked me to come and help her, to help him, to help out their children. But I refused. She told me she needed me, they needed me, and that I'm their daughter. I told her I didn't care, I wouldn't help. And after everything they had done, they deserved nothing from me. I told her she failed me as a mother, and as far as I was concerned, they were already dead and buried, and nothing to do with me. She said I was being unfair, holding on to the past too much, and lacking in compassion. She tried to tell me to think of the good times. I told her she failed me. She forced me to say stuff I didn't want to say as a kid, in order to appease her husband who didn't treat me like his kid anyway. Now a family friend reached out after the disagreement, and told me I should be ashamed. And while they were imperfect back then, they are still my family. And then I piled on a woman who is doing the hardest job imaginable, which is caring for a sick loved one. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Huge not the a-hole. Your mom and stepdad both failed you as parents. Both of them disrespected your memory of your father. Your stepdad forcing you to call him something he wasn't entitled to and didn't live up to. Your mom choosing him and his kids over you. I mean, the only parent you had left didn't want to protect you. Now she can live by her choice. That family friend can help her if she is so concerned. Because it turns out she is not your friend. Children are dependent on the grown-ups. So when people don't support their kids when they need it, they can't expect to get support when they get older. I wish you a great life and future. Did you ever reach out to your real father's family? Yes, I have them in my life again. They were around as much as they could be when I was a kid, but it was very, very infrequent. The ex forgets. The tree remembers. Well, not entirely. The ex remembers that it lost some sharpness. Go get an apology from John. Then cut contact. Tell them you'll get back in 15 or so years. That's how long they made you wait. Tell your family friend they should be ashamed for not caring for an abused kid. And they can go help the abusers. And then to get lost. Not the a-hole. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Not the a-hole, and tell the family friend to help your mother if they are so concerned. And ask where they were during her mistreatment. Not the a-hole. People tend to get very selective in their memories of how things happened when it suits their needs. And do they need you or your money? For 7 years, he decided he was no longer your father. And your mother made only a token effort to remain in contact. Now there is a need on their part for help. They've decided you are part of their family? You feel that your mother failed you, and that he wanted a title of a father without reciprocating and giving you what you needed as a daughter. Feel free to walk away with a clear conscience. People tend to get very selective in their memories of how things happened when it suits their needs. Yes, 100%. A lot of folks seem to think that abusers commonly forget what they did, just because they say they can't remember specific memories when they're confronted with them. Even if they truly can't recall a particular instance, that doesn't mean they've just forgotten that they were horrible in general. A family friend reached out after the disagreement and told me I should be ashamed, and while they were imperfect back then, they are still my family. There's imperfect and then there's abusive. That so-called friend is lucky they never had to learn the difference. Not the a-hole. Block them all. Enjoy being young and free. And join us here in r/raised by narcissists if you like.